UFC Atlantic City was one of the weirdest cards I have ever seen, but we did manage to make some money, turn a profit on a card like that. You got to be grateful. A lot of well-respected cappers I know were not able to do that, and I honestly can't blame them. From the fights themselves to the judging to the refs, it was a crazy card, and we're just going to be recapping the fights a little bit, make it short and sweet, and I'm also want to touch on a couple little betting tips that a lot of people don't know, especially if you're newer to gambling or if you just kind of want to see how I do things, but I'm not going to go on and on too long. I want to keep it short and sweet. Before we get into that, though, make sure you leave a like on the video, click subscribe. Let me know in the comments what bets you cashed and how you got screwed by some of those crazy finishes, the judging, the refs. Oh, man, most of the refs, that was crazy. But first off, before we get into these fights, man, I just wanted to touch on a lot of people have questions about like units and how that works. Obviously, if you're experiencing this, you can fast forward through this. But a lot of people really don't know and they don't understand. A lot of IRL friends I know, they're like, oh, plus 500, let me empty my bankroll onto that. Man, you know, you want to pick an amount that you're willing to lose gambling, because it's gambling at the end of the day, and you want to split that up. Like a unit for you should be like, 1 to 3% of your bankroll, and don't put everything into one fight. Don't put everything onto one card. So if you see a plus 500, you don't need to put a full unit on that like you would an even money. If it's minus 120, I tend to do 1.2 units. If it's plus 200, I'm going to typically put half a unit. That's just how I like to do things. All my bets are typically to win one unit. So whether your unit is $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it is, or $1, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't unit shame. Whatever it is, you could be the greatest gambler ever and bet pennies. You could be the worst gambler ever and bet millions, like Drake. So that's something that a lot of people honestly don't know. But my general rule of thumb is I like to make my bets, unless it's a huge plus money, because I'm not going to put like 0.09 units. Like, I don't do that. So if it's plus 2,000, I'll probably end up just putting 0.1. But that's how so then if my unit size was 100 or 1,000, let's say it's $100, you would put $10 on that. So that's I just wanted to get a quick little, because I get a lot of questions about what are units, how does this work? Oh, I do this amount. That's just kind of how general rule of thumb, but you can make your unit size whatever you want it to be. If you're only willing to, over the next couple months, lose $500, then your unit size shouldn't be $100. Like you should go lower than that. And if, so whether it's big or small or whatever, that's just kind of general rule of thumb. That out of the way, man, I want to go through these fights and talk about how I manage to make it out of a crazy card like that with a profit. We did make some bad bets, and I'm going to touch on those too, but I do want to go through the fights real quick. First fight of the night, man, we had Calvin Loughran versus Angel Pacheco. Honestly, not a whole lot to say here. Loughran was the biggest favorite second biggest favorite on the card, and he looked like it. He was a better fighter. Pacheco had a couple decent moments, but overall, Loughran was able to, mix in some grappling, land some good shots on the feet. He was just a better, more put-together, well-rounded guy. He did get the win. I had no bets on that. I did pick him to win, but no bets. Next up, we had this was the start of like where things just got nuts. Jacob Malkoun versus Andre Petroski. The first round was pretty crazy. Andre Petroski dropped him, but Jacob Malkoun hurt him multiple times. I honestly thought, and I had no money on this, I did pick Jacob Malkoun. I thought Jacob won the first round, even though he got dropped, but I might have to go back and watch it. Petroski obviously dropped him. A knockdown. We do have a boxing criteria. We stole our judging criteria from boxing, MMA. So it does tend to work like that. If you get knocked down, it's hard to win the round. But Malkoun honestly had multiple good moments on the round. Then we go into the second round, and oh man, that was so weird. I still don't fully know what happened. Malkoun or Petroski shoots. Malkoun hits him with a little weird shot, like grazed him off the temple. Sometimes that does take your equilibrium. I don't know if that's what it was. Apparently, Petroski told some people in the crowd that he got hit in the Adam's apple. And then also, Malkoun thought it was the crossface. I really don't know. It looked like Petroski ran into his hip, and I've seen people get knocked out from shooting into somebody's hip bone. Honestly, what happened? Hopefully we find out. But I don't think it was fixed. A lot of people are saying fixed. Dude, I don't think this fight was fixed. You would pick an easier way. Like, you would have went down from one of the punches. Like, why would you make it so obnoxiously weird? I think it was just a freak thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's two guys fighting in a cage. Weird things happen. At the end of the day, I do think the better fighter won. Hate to say that's going to make some people mad. Petrosky was still alive, though. The fight wasn't over. So if you had a Petrosky bet, yeah, it's a little bit of a bad beat. I picked Jacob. No bet, though. We move on to Ibo Aslan. Honestly, I had a feeling that Aslan would be working on that gas tank. You know, he's young. He obviously knows how he got his one loss. So plenty of time to work on that. And, I mean, this was a good fight. It got fight of the night, I believe, for a reason. Was a scrap, and Anton had plenty of moments. But in the end, Ibo drops him with a hard right hand. Honestly, Anton was tired. He was pretty beat up. I saw some people saying early stoppage. I don't think it was I thought that was actually one of the better stoppages of the night. Aslan gets the win. We did pick him, but no bet. Didn't really bet these early prelims. Sometimes I do, but not a lot on this card. Next up, we had Dennis Bazookia taking on Connor Matthews. I picked Bazookia, but again, no bet. Overall, I mean, Connor Matthews did work in some wrestling, but we knew Bazookia would have a little bit of a jiu-jitsu advantage, and he used some. He looked pretty good on his defensive grappling, and then in the end there in the third round, catched him with a nasty left hook. Honestly, I didn't have any problem with that stoppage either. Connor Matthews is tough. The dude is a dog. I'm glad to see Bazookia get a win. I think his first two fights, I mean, coming in and having a debut against Woodson, and then Immers right after that, who we're going to be talking about in a minute. Those are tough two fights to get into the UFC with. So I think this was more well matched. I think I did lean Bazookia, but now it was kind of a show me spot, and he showed me some better skill. I think he looked a lot better. So good win, good finish. Didn't have a problem with that one. We move on a little bit. Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. This was the last fight that I didn't have a bet on. I did pick Julio Arce. No shocker. He was a big favorite. Herbert didn't look terrible in the first. Honestly, I was like, okay. Like some people, he wasn't super aggressive. I think maybe he was trying to pace himself a little bit more. But, it wasn't terrible early on. But, I do hate to see fighters that miss weight. Arce was the only person on the card who missed weight and up a weight. He went up a weight class and then missed weight. Apparently, he did have, he did have an ACL injury recently. I think he said he had some other things going on. It is what it is. They are humans at the end of the day. Mistakes happen. Hopefully, he can correct that into the next fight. It is a shame when fighters miss weight and then win. But at the end of the day, I do think he was the better fighter. We'll see what's next for Herbert. He's getting a little up there in age. He's had some, for the division at least, he's had some pretty bad performances. In the end, he was really just covering up and just getting blasted. The better fighter won at the end of the day. Next up, man, we did cash the overs in this fight, but, I picked Lupita. This was the first one I picked wrong. I was really battling with some of those Lupita props. I thought about doing the decision, ended up changing my mind, or at least Lupita decision, just went with the over. And I obviously glad I did that, but man, it's crazy. Like, Lupi has all the skills, but she just sometimes doesn't put it together. Not a great performance, getting wrestled like that by Verna. Especially like Lupita's got the wrestling pedigree, but Verna's just a dog. She's experienced, and she wasn't able to get the sub. Lupi was trying to get ankle locks and stuff at one point. I mean, I guess she felt like she was losing the fight, but not a great decision. You got to keep this fight upright, but I don't know. I mean, the fight IQ has been a problem at times. But overall, we were happy. We didn't cash the big hedge with Verna's sub. I figured that would be the only way this fight got finished, but we did cash the over. We move on to the next fight. We had Nate Landwehr versus Jamal Emmers, and actually no, there was one more that I didn't have a bet on because I knew Nate was a dog, and like I said on my video, Nate is the definition of a live dog. Somebody you want to bet on. He's always going to keep fighting for your money. Dude was cut up, bloodied. He took some big shots in that first round, but he just kept coming forward, kept coming. Ends up landing a disgusting uppercut. Then, just swarmed him. And Jamal Emmers was laid out, ate a couple shots while he was had no idea where he was. That was a good stoppage, that's for sure. Jamal Emmers is tough, but he's always gotten flack for his fight IQ ever since the Giga fight. I can't remember. The Pat Sabatini fight, too. It's like you're playing the leg lock game with a legitimate world champion jiu-jitsu guy. And now he comes in here and is like, oh, let's I mean, maybe he thought I want to get on him early. Like, I don't know, but turn it into a dogfight with Nate Landwehr. Like, it's just not a good game plan for you in this, specifically in this fight. I think that is the one way you don't fight Nate, and he did pay the price. He looked good in the beginning, but ends up getting knocked out. We move on to the next fight, man. This fight was the letdown of the card, honestly. Chidi Njokuani versus Reese McKee. I thought about doubling down when I saw him look good on the scales. I had that parlay from last week. I had the Rose and the over in the Rose. It was just at 1.5. It was like minus 122. What was it? Minus 122 with the Rose over 1.5 and Chidi straight. It did get a little sketchy. Like I said, I felt like I got duped. This fight was being listed as middleweight everywhere. It got put at welterweight like Tuesday, and I was like, oh no, I should have done more research here. It doesn't happen often. I don't even remember the last time that's happened to me. But, when I saw him in the scales, I felt confident. I wasn't going to cash out of that. We ended up riding out. Didn't double down, kicking myself a little bit. I was like, man, he was like minus 140. But apparently a judge had the fight scored by Reese. One of the judges, that is, like, how? I mean, the first round wasn't terrible by McKee, but, like, didn't think he won it. And I honestly don't understand how you could score the second or third for him. He did nothing. All he did was try to hold Chidi up against the cage. And even in the old scoring, he wouldn't have won those rounds. Since when are they winning rounds off that now? He did 0 damage to Chidi. So that judge, I don't know what he was. I want some of that pack, because we're going to be smoking the boogie pack at the end of this video. And I want some of that judge's pack, because that was outrageous. But Chidi wins. He cashes the second leg of that parlay for me. So, looking good so far. We got the first over and the Verna fight. We got the Chidi fight to finish that parlay. So we're feeling pretty good. We move on to the Bilal Jail Callum Nelson fight. This was kind of good and bad for me. I thought the stoppage was bad. It wasn't great. He was landing some good shots, and I hate to take away from Kyle Nelson because it was a good performance. But does suck to see. I mean, you got guys getting laid out, just their absolute shit kicked in certain fights, and then you got fights like this where, I mean, yeah, he was hurt, definitely. Algeo was in trouble, and Kyle Nelson was swarming him. He's got enough power. It's not like I'm saying he wasn't hurt, but that wasn't a good stoppage. There was no reason that fight should have been stopped. He was hurt, but he was working still. He was still defending himself. He was immediately fine when they stopped the fight. It wasn't a good stoppage. That's just, I'm sorry. No matter what side of that you're on, some people are saying, rigged because all the action was on Algeo. I'm not going to say that's not true. I don't know. I don't have the evidence to make that type of claim, but it was a bad stoppage. That's all I do know. It was some good shots, though. I hate to take away from Kyle Nelson's performance. He did cost me my fight starts round 2. For the Bilal Jail Kyle Nelson starts round 2, but he did cash with that knockout the Algeo Nelson under 178.5 strikes. That I think it closed at like 168 or something like that, but never close. But once I saw that first round, yeah, they were throwing a lot, but I was like, this ain't going 3. But cashes that, so 1-1 there, so I was fine with that. We move on to the next fight. This was the one where I mean, a lot of people got screwed on certain fights of this card. This was the one that really screwed me. Now, can't complain when you make it out of a card like that with like 4 fights that were controversial. You can't be too mad. But Ruzaboyev Dumas, don't get me wrong, Ruzaboyev looked good, and I knew he was going to be making improvements over there at Renzo Gracie, a great gym, surrounded by great guys, great coaches. Dumas, obviously, never been a guy I like to bet on. Not inside and out the cage, doesn't have the best IQ. But, Ruzaboyev definitely, I mean, look, it was an eye poke. You can watch the replay, and I don't understand how they can look at the Chris Weidman replay. First of all, we'll get into that. But if you look at the replay, like, dude, it's not, nobody's saying Ruzaboyev didn't eye poke the crap out of him. Dumas goes down. Now, I get protect yourself at all times, but, like, it sucks because it's such a gray area, and it was on display more than probably ever last night. The fouls, the gray area with the fouls, I mean, there was no better example. And how many events we've had, like, how thousands of fights. Just Ruzaboyev eye pokes him, Dumas goes down, grabbing his eyes, and then Ruzaboyev finishes him. And I did have Dumas plus 230. And this is a guy where, yeah, Ruzaboyev looked good in the first, but he looks good in every first round. That's why I bet against him, because I thought Dumas could extend him later. So everybody's like, oh, he would have lost anyways. I'm not being salty. Again, so many people got done dirtier on this card than I did. I'm not salty. I'm just saying I had Dumas plus 230. I had Fight Goes to Decision plus 400. I would have liked to see that play out, because if you watch Ruzaboyev fight, if you're not just wiki capping and you watch his fights, he looks good every first round, and then if he doesn't finish you, he falls off the table and either loses by decision or completely gasses out, and he has been finished a couple times. And these are against cans. Dumas isn't great, but he is a step up from the people Ruzaboyev has been beating. I would have liked to see that fight play out. Do I feel terrible for Dumas? Do I love the guy outside of the cage? No, but he did get done a little bit dirty. We move on, though. Bad bounce, but we move on. A lot of people had bad bounces on this fight. We had Chris Weidman versus Bruno Silva. We did have the under 99.5 strikes. That did not cash. So, after the Dumas fight and this, I was like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. Weidman honestly looked good, though. Like, say what you want. We were just talking about eye pokes back-to-back. Look, I love Chris. Y'all know I'm biased. That's my boy. But, we've had some hilarious moments if y'all been watching on Twitch. Chris is honestly a cool dude. I know he's getting a lot of hate from last night, but, dude, he's passionate. He's put his entire life and soul into this. So it's a tough blow like that. Also, especially, like, he was winning the fight. He was looking good, and we knew he was a live dog. He had some good moments. Like, honestly, I had him winning the fight. I think most people did. He did get clipped a couple times, but overall he was winning. He dominated the first round. The second round I thought he edged. And in the third round, it is what it is. He finished him. It was 2 eye pokes for sure. I don't think Chris knew how bad it was. I don't know. They changed it from a TKO win to a technical decision. A lot of people have problems with this. Look, at the end of the day, I do think Chris was winning the fight. It was unfortunate. Worst case scenario, I think should be a no contest because he was up 2-0. I get that that's not perfect. There's no perfect answer. Again, this goes back to last night was the best example of the gray area and fouls for fighting in MMA. But I was happy to see Chris get a win. Aside from the eye pokes, he honestly, he was fighting good, man. Did he look like the greatest Chris we've ever seen? No, I'm not saying all that, but he looked good and he got the win. So we move on. This next fight, I was on Luke. We did have the under 103.5 strikes. So this ended up being just a blank for me, a 1-1. We missed on Luke. That finish was another one people had a problem with. Luke, man, it was a decently competitive fight. I wasn't feeling great, but I wasn't oh, we're out of this. And then Luque pulls guard and lets Buckley on top of him, and then he just covers up. I don't think it was rigged. I know a lot of people are saying that. I just think maybe he had some fears still, like he's talked about, and he ate a couple shots, and he just wanted to get up out of there. I don't know. I hate to question a dude as that's always been so tough like Luque, but it was weird to see. We did cash the under in the strikes. We missed the money line. So we moved into the main event, and this was going to be all or nothing for me. Needed Faro here. We were on her plus 165. We were on the under 311.5 strikes. We were on under 186.5 for Blanchfield strikes, and we had the over in the 2.5. So this was obviously huge for me. If an early finish, especially by Blanchfield, would just absolutely crush me. And after the first round, even after that guillotine, I was feeling good. Some people were saying she tapped. I think she was getting rolled as Blanchfield was rolling her with the guillotine, and she was you reach up to grab some. I think she was just getting rolled, and she reached up to grab something. She grabbed her leg and then let go. I don't think it was a tap, to be honest. Look, I honestly was feeling good when she was in the guillotine. I was burn those arms out, Aaron. And I gotta say, she honestly fought. It wasn't really fatigue that cost Aaron this fight. Again, while she was in the guillotine, Faro, I was we're good. She's going to get out of this, and it's going to take a nice little... It's going to sap Blanchfield's, energy a little bit. But overall, Faro is just the like I broke down, and not only if you watch my video, but I did I don't do these often, but I did like a long Twitter breakdown on this, and it honestly played out exactly how I figured it would. Fro is the bigger, more athletic, stronger, just bigger, quicker. I meant bigger shots there at the end. Like, just landing the crisper shots, the better footwork. Blanchfield's just plotty. I get it. As I said, like, she's just a stationary target. She just plots forward. I didn't think her wrestling was that great, and it didn't look great in this fight. Ferreau was just... Blanchfield's 24. Maybe she needs to go down, some people are saying, but I honestly don't think she's tiny for the division. I just think Ferreau is huge. She's on the maybe smaller than average, and Ferreau is one of the biggest girls in the division. So we cashed Ferreau straight. We cashed the under in the strikes. We cashed the under for Blanche's strikes. And we cashed the over. So 2.5. The Algeo parlay, that did actually end up costing me. So, didn't get to hit that one. But, and the loopy, I did meant to touch on this. We were supposed to have Gatto versus Dudakova goes the decision. With the loopy versus Verna goes the decision. That obviously turned into a straight money line. Or not money line, straight play on the loopy Verna goes the decision. Took it from a plus 122 to like a minus 250. Is what it is. Hey, we'll take it, but not what we wanted. But that main event definitely saved me. I had a lot riding on that. I don't bet like women's MMA a ton, but at the highest level like that, I made my reads. I was confident. I thought Ferreau, especially at plus money, let alone plus 165, was the value. I thought these girls probably, it actually got closer than I thought. Towards the end there, I was like, oh man, they're throwing. They're gonna try to catch these totals, strike totals. But even if you got in a little late on the strike totals, you should have cashed that. I think it finished pretty closely to what I got it at. It didn't. Apparently, it was a 5-round fight, 2 good girls. I can see why they had it so high, and it did get close enough. It had me sweating a little bit in the 5th, but we did end up cashing. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, man, you really gotta bankroll management really is key, man. I think a lot of people, they're just like, oh, I'm gonna put 100 on each bet. Like, don't do that. If it's plus 100 and your unit size is 1,000, put 1,000 on it. If it's plus 500, don't put 1,000 on it. You know what I mean? Don't, and really it's just don't put a full unit. Like, if your unit size is 10,000, then maybe you put 1,000 on it. But if your unit size is $1,000 and it's plus 1,000, don't put 1,000 on that plus the, and then again, when I'm with friends IRL or when people hit me up in the DMs and the comments and they say, oh, should I do less on the, I don't like to tell you how to bet. I like to tell you how I do it, and if you want to take some lessons from me, again, I'm not the end all be all, whatever they're saying. You can do your own thing, and I want you to trust your reads, and I want you to, if you want to put 5 units on a plus 500 play, then do that, because I'm not going to be sitting there like feeling like an asshole when that ends up cashing and you could have made 10 grand and you made $1,000 instead. Look, at the end of the day, trust your gut, do your thing. My way of doing things is I like to, unless it's over plus 1,000, I like to go with all my bets to win 1 unit. So I thought I won 4.3 units. Then I realized, that Algeo KO was in the in the first round. I was thinking it was the beginning of the second for some reason. So that did end up cashing me, that parlay. So I only took 2.3 units. So, on a card like that, we'll take any, at the end of the day, profit's profit when you're gambling. If you're coming out on the green, you just got to keep doing that. Small wins, it's a marathon. We've been doing this for 7 years. And on YouTube for 4, maybe 4.5. At the end of the day, just want a steady green, consistent green. But hey, that was one of the craziest, most wild cards I've ever seen. I think a lot of the reads were on point. There was some crazy judging, luckily we didn't get burned too bad by the judging, but the reffing was crazy. At the end of the day, man, I'm just happy to be in the green on what was a crapshoot. Because I did, you guys know, before I start these videos, I always, got to smoke a little of the bookie pack. So then sometimes I forget at the end of the video after I mention it. But we had to. After a card like last night, some of the most respected handicappers I know lost huge last night. And I don't think a lot of them had bad reads. It's just, man, it was a high variance card. So if you came out on top, if you tailed the bets, even if you didn't, You made your own reads. Again, you got to trust your gut at the end of the day. But I do appreciate you guys. We've been growing a lot over here. I've been doing this for a long time, but I just do it because I love it. I have fun, and I'm going to do this anyway, so why not, share my thoughts with you guys. But you guys is in the comments, your DMs, all that. Especially, I get more hype when y'all send me screenshots of you making money than my own bets. And that's the God honest truth. That shit gets me hype. So appreciate you guys, man. Like the video, click subscribe. Let me know in the comments what bets you cashed, where you got screwed by the judges, by the ref, whatever it was, man. Hey, by an eye poke. But good luck, man. We'll see you guys Tuesday night for my video. Next week, we're going to keep the train rolling, man. Let's get another big streak going. Let's keep robbing these bookies blind. I will catch y'all Tuesday night. Peace.